Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into another thought-provoking topic.
Always.
Today, we're tackling a question that's been around forever, but it's especially interesting considering what you're going through right now.
hmm
Is there really such a thing as the one?
Ooh, that's a big one.
It is. And we've got articles from therapists, relationship experts, even some really passionate forum discussions to help us explore it. So are you ready to see what we can uncover?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
All right. It's amazing how this whole soulmate idea is still so strong, even with dating apps and algorithms trying to do the matchmaking for us.
Right.
You'd think we'd have moved past that by now.
You'd think so, but it seems like there's still this really deep desire for that one perfect person.
Yeah, like we're trying to make sense of this old belief in destiny while we're swiping left and right on Tinder.
Exactly. It's this clash between the old and the new.
It really is. And some of these sources, like this therapist in women's health, are just straight up saying the one is a myth. Yeah, they think it's more about finding someone who's compatible, an A1, and focusing on growing together in the relationship. What do you think about that?
Well, I can see where they're coming from. The one idea can set us up for some pretty unrealistic expectations. Like
Yeah.
we're just waiting for this perfect person to magically appear instead of actually putting in the effort to build a healthy relationship.
Right, like holding out for that fairy tale ending. But real relationships need work, compromise, all that stuff.
Exactly. And that's where personal growth becomes so important. It's not just about checking off boxes on a list. It's about being with someone who helps you become the best version of yourself.
That's a really good point. But I got to say, the idea of the one, even though it's maybe a little unrealistic, is still pretty appealing.
It is.
It gives you this sense of certainty,
Mhm.
like your love story is already written. There's this Reddit thread we found where people are actually debating whether that feeling of just knowing, like having that instant connection, is something everyone experiences.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Is.
I mean, it's clear that a lot of us want that sense of destiny, that feeling that our love story was like meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
And even some of the sources that are a bit skeptical about the one acknowledge that certain people just feel different to us.
Yeah.
Like this article from AARP, which is pretty science focused, talks about how our brains are actually wired to find some people more attractive than others.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it even gets into how things like smell and sight play a role in that initial spark.
So there's a biological reason we're drawn to certain people.
Right.
But this article also says that building a relationship that lasts takes more than just that initial chemistry.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that keeps coming up in all these different sources we've looked at.
It does.
Whether it's that therapist in women's health who gives like 15 signs of a healthy relationship, things like trust and respect and communication, or the real life stories people are sharing in the Love Shack forum, the message is clear. Relationships take work.
It's not enough to just be attracted to someone. You got to be compatible, have shared values, and be willing to put in the effort to make it work. And that's where I think this whole idea of manifesting a soulmate gets really interesting.
Manifesting, huh? That's a whole other level.
It is. It's not just about finding the one anymore. It's about creating them, like attracting them into your life with the power of your thoughts.
Wow.
It's really popular with younger generations who are like kind of disillusioned with online dating.
Makes sense.
Yeah, they're looking for something deeper, that sense of destiny, and manifesting feels like a way to make that happen.
Hmm.
But do you think it could also lead to disappointment?
That's a good question.
Like, if you're so focused on manifesting the perfect partner, are you missing out on chances to connect with someone amazing who might not fit that exact image?
It's possible. Manifesting can be a really powerful tool for personal growth. But I think it's important to remember that relationships are a two-way street. It's not just about attracting the right person. It's about being the right person, too, and being willing to do the work to build a solid foundation.
So it seems like there's this tension between wanting a soulmate who's destined for you and knowing that healthy relationships take effort and compatibility, and you have to grow together.
Definitely a tension there.
And figuring out how to deal with that seems like it's key to finding a love that's both fulfilling and actually lasts.
Absolutely. And it's something that each of us has to figure out for ourselves.
All right, so let's take a step back from the whole soulmate debate for a minute and focus on what we've learned from these sources about building a strong, lasting partnership. What really stands out to you?
Well, one thing that's really crucial, especially when you're trying to figure out if you're compatible, is aligning on your core values and those big life goals.
Like, do you want kids? Where do you see yourself living? That kind of thing.
Exactly. That women's health article really emphasized that.
It did.
Like, Thinking about how you see your future unfolding, both individually and as a couple.
Right, those big picture questions. And I think it's important to know the difference between compromise and sacrificing those core values.
Oh, definitely.
Because if there's a big disconnect on something fundamental, it's going to create problems down the road.
Absolutely. And speaking of things that could be deal breakers, that Love Shack forum is just full of real life cautionary tales.
Oh yeah, those are intense.
People are sharing stories about heartbreak, realizing that the person they thought was the one really wasn't.
Yeah, it's easy to look back on past relationships with rose-colored glasses and think, what if? But like that article on your Tango says, there's really no such thing as the one that got away.
Right. That idea kind of suggests there was this one perfect person and you just missed your chance.
But what if every relationship, even the ones that don't work out, teaches you something important about yourself?
Ooh, I like that.
What if they help you grow and become the person you're meant to be?
That's a really powerful way to look at it. It changes those relationships from being failures to being opportunities for growth and self-discovery.
Exactly. And maybe that growth is what prepares you for a truly fulfilling relationship that will last.
Maybe so. But remember that author who was talking about how important education is for making a relationship work?
Yeah.
He was really emphasizing learning about the differences between men and women and accepting that all relationships, even if you think you found your soulmate, require effort.
So even if you feel like you found the one, you can't just coast on that initial feeling.
Right. You have to be intentional about nurturing the relationship, communicating well, and working through the challenges that come up.
It's like building a fire, you know?
Yeah.
You need that initial spark to get it going, but then you have to keep adding fuel and tending to it to keep it burning bright.
Ooh, I love that analogy.
It really emphasizes how important it is to actively participate in building and maintaining a healthy relationship. So, back to that big question.
Yeah.
How do you know if you found the one?
Hmm.
Or maybe, is that even the right question to be asking?
Maybe a better question is this relationship bringing out the best in me?
Oh, I like that.
Am I growing and evolving with this person? Do I feel loved, respected, and supported?
Those are such great questions. It shifts the focus from looking for this predestined soulmate to really evaluating whether the relationship is good for you.
Exactly. And it highlights how important it is to choose partners who inspire you to be your best self.
But what about the role of spirituality in all of this? Some of the sources, like All Things Allison Ree, suggest that God might actually choose our spouse for us.
Right. That idea that God has a plan for our lives, including who we'll marry.
Yeah.
For some people, that belief is really comforting. It
Mhm.
takes the pressure off feeling like they have to find the one on their own.
But it also raises some tough questions, doesn't it?
It does.
Like, what if you don't feel like you've been led to the right person? What if you've made choices that don't seem to align with what you believe God's plan is?
Yeah, those are valid concerns. And even within religious communities, there are different interpretations of how God's will works in relationships.
Oh, I see.
Some people believe in predestination, while others think God gives us wisdom and the freedom to choose.
So even within a religious context, it's not a simple yes or no answer.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about finding what resonates with you personally and seeking guidance from people you trust.
We've covered a lot of ground here. The idea of the one, the science behind attraction, compatibility, self-awareness, and the role of faith and spirituality. There's one more big piece we need to talk about: how technology is changing the way we approach love and relationships in today's world.
Right. We can't ignore the impact of dating apps, social media, all of that.
Such a big part of the picture now.
Technology has completely changed how we meet, connect, and even define love.
It has.
So let's explore how these digital tools are shaping the search for the one and what it means for how we understand connection and commitment in the 21st century.
Okay, let's dive into the world of digital dating. One of the discussions that really stuck with me was on 7 Cups. Someone was asking if people just stay in relationships because they're afraid of being alone.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a pretty heavy thought.
It is.
Yeah.
Makes you think about all the pressure society puts on us to be in a relationship
Huh.
and how that might lead people to settle for something that's not really fulfilling.
Right. Like we feel like we have to hit all these milestones and find someone by a certain age, get married, have kids.
Exactly.
And that can push us into relationships that aren't right for us just because we're scared of ending up alone.
It's like we're choosing a comfortable cage over the uncertainty of freedom,
Hmm.
even if that freedom could lead to something much better.
That's a really powerful way to put it.
It's scary, but it's true.
It is. And that's why being self-aware is so crucial, you know?
Hmm.
We have to be honest with ourselves about why we're getting into a relationship. Are we really drawn to this person, or are we just trying to avoid being alone?
That's a hard question to ask yourself.
It is, but it's so important if we want to build relationships that are based on genuine connection. And that honesty should also apply to being clear about what we're looking for in a partner and what we are and aren't willing to compromise on.
And speaking of compromise, the Love Shack forum has some really eye-opening stories about that. Sometimes heartbreaking, but definitely insightful. People sharing their experiences with heartbreak and realizing that someone they thought was the one wasn't.
Yeah, those stories remind us that relationships are messy.
They are.
They require effort, good communication, and sometimes even letting go when things aren't working, no matter how much you might want them to.
It's so easy to idealize past relationships. Look back with rose-colored glasses and think, what if? But like that Your Tango article said, the one that got away doesn't really exist.
Right.
That idea suggests there was this one perfect person and you somehow messed it up.
Yeah, it puts all the blame on you.
Exactly.
And it ignores the fact that relationships are a two-way street.
But what if we looked at all our relationships, even the ones that ended, as valuable lessons? What if they're helping us grow into the people we're supposed to be?
I like that perspective. It turns those failed relationships into opportunities for growth and learning about yourself.
Right. And maybe that growth is actually preparing us for a truly amazing, lasting relationship.
Maybe so. But you know that author who is talking about how crucial it is to educate yourself to make a relationship work?
Yeah, what was his take?
He was really into learning about the differences between men and women and understanding that all relationships require work, even if you think you found your soulmate.
So even if you feel like you've found the one, you can't just sit back and relax.
Nope, you got to put in the effort.
It's a continuous process.
Exactly.
Okay, so going back to that big question, how do you know if you found the one? Or maybe we should be asking a different question altogether.
Maybe a better question is this relationship bringing out the best in me? Am I growing as a person because of it? Do I feel loved and respected and supported?
Those are much better questions, I think. It shifts the focus from searching for this predetermined soulmate to actually evaluating if the relationship is good for you.
Exactly. And it reminds us that we should be with partners who inspire us to become our best selves.
Okay, so we've talked about the practical side of things like compatibility and effort, but what about the spiritual aspect? Some of the sources, like All Things Allison Marie, suggest that God might have a hand in choosing our spouse.
Right, that idea of divine intervention in our love lives.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, that belief provides comfort and a sense of surrender, like they don't have to stress about finding the one on their own.
That makes sense. But it also brings up some doubts, right?
It does.
Like, what if you don't feel like God has led you to the right person? What if the choices you've made don't align with what you believe is God's plan?
Those are definitely valid questions. And even within different religious groups, there are different interpretations of how God's will plays out in relationships.
Oh, interesting.
Some believe in predestination, while others think God guides us with wisdom and gives us the freedom to make our own choices.
So even with faith involved, it's not a clear-cut answer.
Exactly. It comes down to what resonates with you personally and finding spiritual guidance from people you trust.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. The myth of the one, the science behind attraction, compatibility, self-awareness, and the role of faith and spirituality. But there's one more big thing we can't ignore: how technology is changing the way we look at love and relationships today.
Oh, absolutely. We can't leave out the impact of dating apps, social media, and the whole digital landscape.
It's such a huge part of the picture now.
It is. Technology has completely changed how we meet, connect, and even define love.
It really has.
So let's dive into how these digital tools are shaping the search for the one and what it all means for connection and commitment in the 21st century.
Let's explore the world of digital dating. All right, so we're really diving into this world of dating apps now, right? Algorithms, virtual connections, all that. It's hard to even imagine looking for the one today without thinking about all the technology involved.
It's like they're totally woven together at this point.
Yeah.
Technology hasn't just changed how we meet people, it's changed what we expect from relationships too.
It's so true. Like, even just a few decades ago, you'd meet someone through friends or at work, or maybe just striking up a conversation somewhere. Now you've got these apps that put, like, tons of potential matches right there on your phone.
And you'd think that would be a good thing, right? More options, better chance of
Yeah.
finding the one.
Yeah, you'd think.
But that HuffPost UK article you shared, it talks about the downsides of having too much choice. They call it choice overload.
Choice overload. What's
What?
that?
Well, it's like when you're faced with too many options, you kind of freeze up.
Oh, I get that.
Instead of feeling like you have all this power, you just feel overwhelmed and you can't make a decision. It makes it harder to commit to one person because you're always wondering if there's someone better out there.
It's like that FOMO feeling, but for relationships.
Exactly. You're scrolling through all these profiles, seeing everyone's best selves, and it's easy to get caught up in comparing and always wanting something better.
And the whole swiping thing, too,
Mm-hmm.
judging someone based on a couple pictures and a few sentences, it feels kind of superficial.
Totally. It turns people into, like, data points instead of seeing them as real people with their own stories and values.
Yeah, like instead of looking for someone who shares your beliefs or makes you laugh, you're focused on who has the best profile pic.
It becomes more about a transaction than a real connection. And I think it ties into what we were saying before about manifesting.
How so?
It's almost like we're trying to manifest our way out of the algorithm. We want control in this dating world that feels kind of crazy and out of control.
Like we're trying to hack the system to deliver the one to us.
Right. But like we talked about, being so focused on manifesting a very specific type of partner can actually make you miss out on other great people.
People who might not fit that exact image, but could still be amazing partners.
Exactly.
So it's about finding a balance, being clear about what you want, but also being open to unexpected connections. Because the one might not show up in the way you expect.
Totally. And remember, technology isn't good or bad in itself.
True.
It's a tool, and it depends on how you use it.
That's a good point. I mean, online dating might have some downsides, but it's also created some amazing opportunities, right?
For sure.
People are finding love across the world, connecting with others who share their interests, building relationships that wouldn't have been possible before.
Absolutely. And technology is also a great way to stay connected with people you already love, especially when you're far apart.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into this whole the one idea, what are the main takeaways for our listener who's trying to navigate love and relationships in this digital age?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to be intentional.
Whether you believe in soulmates or not, whether you're using apps or meeting people in person, know what your values are, what you need, and what you want out of a relationship. Don't let pressure from society or those fairy tale stories dictate your choices.
And be open to possibilities. The one might not look exactly how you pictured, and they might show up when you least expect it.
So true. And something else to remember is that loved is a verb. It's not just a feeling, it's a choice you make every day to be there for your partner, to nurture the relationship, and to keep working at it, even when it's tough.
So maybe the one isn't someone you just find, but someone you choose. Someone you build a life with, step by step, through all the ups and downs and all the shared experiences.
And you know what? That kind of love, the kind you build together, might be even more amazing than any fairy tale.
Now that's something to think about. Until next time, everyone, happy diving.